Well, like
It's
who
crazy.
says I don't feel safe? I'm gonna go to Russia.
Right. Well, you know what though? Our overall beard quality here on this channel has increased. It has increased. I mean, we have some great beards on here. I'm sorry, ladies, but you've been in the presence of some great beards. But now our beard game has gone up exponentially. Shout out to Reese, the beard lawyers in the building. Shout out to you, friend. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing? You guys were having a legal debate, and I'm like, you guys can't talk legal game without me, okay? I have to crash the party, and so I
We need adult
knocked on the
supervision up
door.
in here. We need
What's
adult
that?
supervision, man. Come on.
Yeah, adult supervision's what I do best.
My
I
only
love
my
it.
only lawyer experience is hiring one. So
Sometimes that's
My,
the worst experience that you could possibly have. So I feel bad for you.
well, as a my support of the criminal justice system and as such is to not need to hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're
Well,
here, and I'm glad I'm not having to hire you. Shout out to that.
let me just say this: hiring a lawyer is sometimes the best thing you can ever do. I mean, like the kind of work that
Oh,
I do, people
that's a good
hire
point.
me frequently before the problems arise, and that's a more prudent use of your resources than hiring a lawyer to get you out of jail, for
I
example.
got you. That's a good
Right?
point.
Yeah.
I got you. So just in case anybody
you
doesn't
hire
know,
the
I don't.
lawyer when you hear there are charges before they get you.
And just in case, Reese, Race, if they don't know you, could you please tell us who you are, what you're about, all that kind of good stuff, so everybody knows who you are.
Yeah, I go by the moniker Beard Lawyer on social media. My name is Rais Mohammed. So I'm an internet lawyer and corporate lawyer. So my biggest area of practice is internet defamation. So I represent content creators, the celebrities of the internet entrepreneurs, internet tech founders. And I basically keep them out of trouble online. And when they get in trouble online, I'm here to help them out. And I have a more kind of less sexy corporate practice, which is basically like if you've ever watched Suits, then you know what I do on
Yeah,
the other side. But the internet side,
I love.
representing creators and being out there, particularly with defamation and commenting on those kinds of things, it's what I do.
I got you. So did you? And we have now. We did not watch a debate yesterday, by the way, Beard. It was a discussion.
Mm.
So did you watch the discussion between Andrew Wilson and Candace Owens? Do you have any opinions about it?
I watched highlights.
Okay.
Um, have you ever seen a baseball game between two teams you just hate, but you want to know who wins the match? You ever have that situation? It was kind of like
Yes.
that. And so I watched the highlights and I kind of kept a little score as a lawyer. And, maybe a baseball game is not the right analogy
No,
because
it's
you're
not.
dealing
It's
with
not a good one.
professionals, at least. I
A
mean, it was more
boxing
of a
match.
food fight. It was more of a food fight. And
Okay.
look, I get paid to debate for a living. I get paid money to that's the way I look at it. I'm a lawyer. That's what I do.
Right.
I argue with people professionally. So yeah, I mean, do you want me to give you some just my reaction? I mean,
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Come
yeah.
on.
I was hoping like a post boxing match scorecard.
Right.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
let me start by just painting the landscape a little bit. I think what fascinated me watching this as a lawyer is that Candace and Andrew kept kind of arguing past one another.
Okay.
For example, Andrew kept saying things like, "Show me evidence Tyler was framed," and Candace
Hmm.
would say, "The government hasn't convinced me that Tyler did it," right? And those aren't the same proposition. That's not
Nope.
a debate. In a criminal courtroom, if that's the standard and this is the standard, Candace and Andrew don't have the burden. You have to look at it as the government has the burden to prove that the person they're accusing of who did this crime did it, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, another thing that's kind of annoying as a lawyer to watch, this was not a trial. JWhit,
Okay.
you and I have talked about this before. It was
Quite
a
a bit.
preliminary hearing, and there are some
Hmm.
rules of evidence, which I'll talk about in a minute, that are a little more relaxed in this setting. But my point is, the moment Candace affirmatively says, Tyler is a patsy, then just intellectually, she's made a separate factual complaint and a separate factual claim that she now has to support. It's
Correct.
different to say, hey, I don't think the government can meet their burden of proof. That is a legal position. That's an acceptable legal position. But it's entirely different to introduce a new character to the story and say, I think X did it. And because X did it, I'm right and you're wrong. That to me is not only illogical, it's just not how the criminal justice system works. And look, likewise, I have criticisms of Andrew. Andrew can say that he personally finds the evidence overwhelming. I'm using air quotes. But legally, that's meaningless. The standard is not whether the evidence is overwhelming. No jury has found beyond a reasonable doubt right now because the case is not even in front of a jury, right? We're still at what's called a probable cause stage. It's the same standard for a cop to search your house without a warrant, to get a warrant in the first place. It's probable cause. So that's why this is a little bit like watching two teams that I hate playing a baseball match. But there's still ridiculous things being said. And again, I'm not a big fan of the patsy argument because it does not address the government's burden of proof to show that Tyler Robinson, if this gets in front of a jury, committed the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's what everybody wants to know, right? And further for that, I believe September 1st, somebody can fact check me on this because I haven't looked at it in a while. I think September 1st is when Judge Tony Graff in Utah is going to decide, at least that's when final arguments are on whether this will actually be moved to trial, meaning the probable standard has been met, and that this case will actually move towards a criminal trial. Until then, it's all just argument. It's all banter, right? So I thought the debate was disorganized. I thought it was not a debate. I think somebody said that correctly. I think that was not the correct framing. I think it was a chance just to get eyeballs. I think Patrick Bet-David hosted this just to get people to see that, he was in the mix. I don't think he added a lot of value. Again, I'm just talking as a lawyer. I have nothing against anybody personally. It was hard to watch.
So, and being the fact that you are a professional debater, you get paid to argue, if you will. Do you agree that if it had been formatted as a true debate with time limits and requirements of that nature, it would have been better? Or what do you think pertaining to that?
Oh, yeah. I think what they should have done, this is what I would do, is you pick 10 things Candace has said, for example.
Okay.
And say, you said this. Where's your proof? Argue your way, and I'll tell you my version of the story, and vice versa, right? That's how debates work, is you start with the premise, and then the person who's taking the position should support their position, and then you get to argue it with facts. That's basically how it works. Otherwise, this is an eye-poking contest, and it's horrible to watch. This is terrible.
It was painful.
I just wanted to say, like in my background, I was an interrogator when I started in the Army. The setup of the room did not make for a debate, right? So they more embrace the Sean Ryan podcast setup, which is never a debate. It's a discussion. It's a friendly environment. It's meant to kind of lull you into feeling secure and relaxed about the way you're talking. And again, I'd love to hear Bearded Lawyer's thought on this. Is, to me, if you have a debate, and I know this sounds trivial as hell, you need a table. You need the ability to have something to argue across, and not so much sit comfortable in chairs looking at each other.
Well, this is my point about they were talking past each other all the time. Like if Patrick or somebody said, here's what we're going to do. Why will the state not be able to meet their burden of proof to show that by probable cause they are prosecuting the right person? That's a very concrete question, because now it frames the DNA from the trigger, the DNA outside of the trigger, the ballistics. It frames suspects. It frames the location of where Tyler Robinson was, not nebulous ideologies and opinions and political speech and all the stuff that doesn't win or lose a case. So
Correct.
if I present a theory that I believe aliens from outer space came down and, found a rifle and decided the rifle wasn't their best weapon, and somehow put an exploding device into a microphone. Let's just say that's my theory. And somebody said, well, Rais, what's your evidence to support that? And I said, well, the government's retarded. I haven't moved the needle.
That's a great point.
Nobody. That's like that. That's like saying, that's like saying I can't think straight today because my shoe's not tied. I mean, they're not correlated. And so I have a problem watching people who are not academic, who are, and listen, I think both Andrew and Candace have abilities to attract an audience. And I've said this before. I personally believe the cost of a microphone and camera should be at least $1 million, because the burden to get into this game is way too low. And as a result, you have a lot of noise. At the same time, I believe in freedom of speech. Obviously, I'm a First Amendment lawyer. I just think there's a lot of noise, man. I just think there's a lot of noise. And I'm happy to get into specifics about what was said. I know you guys were starting to talk about that a little bit, about, some points that were made. But I would have liked to see this charted. I would have created a chart. Let's talk about bullet fragments. Let's talk about DNA. Let's talk about alternative theories. Put your facts. What are your facts? It's just hard to watch when it looks like people with ADD who are not medicated just spewing. That's what I saw. I mean, I'm sorry. The highlights that I saw. And I didn't watch all 3 hours because maybe that's my attention span issue. I don't know.
Well, I will just go ahead and tell you right now, it wasn't much better for us who watched the entire thing. So
I was
that's
screaming
screaming
at the laptop. Sometimes I feel like Candace intentionally misunderstands how a trial or pretrial works. That, or she knows and she's just trying to make everybody else confused. Do you ever feel like she's using that people don't understand that you're not going to get all the information, we're not going to get all the evidence until the actual trial?
Yeah,
because the way she was talking to Andrew was like she was saying we should know this. I'm like, what?
So
I don't think she. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if the question was directed at, but I have a very
It's to you. It's to you, Beard. I was just gonna give you a second to process it.
I have a visceral reaction to this because, again, as a lawyer watching these things, anybody who understands, and I'm not even a criminal lawyer, okay? I don't purport to be. I'm a civil practitioner, but I know enough about the criminal process. And I've read enough to know this. At this stage, nobody knows what the other side has in full. They just, they don't. The judge doesn't know because it hasn't been presented yet. So the strategic thing about, smart prosecutors, and for that matter, smart defense lawyers, will only show the cards they need to show to advance their position, because they don't want the other side to build a defense when and if and when this gets to trial, premised on what they had 6 months or 7 months or 9 months to prepare for in advance of a criminal trial even starting. So for that reason, it is illogical to even conclude. Again, not even talking about who's right or wrong, but it's nonsensical to suggest that the cards are laid out and we know who's going to play what. It's just false. It's incorrect. It's not how the system works.
Wait, could I just ask a quick question, just because we do have a lawyer present? I love that so much. So a point that Candace made during this debate was that, oh God, now I lost it. It was about the idea that people don't present things here like they don't present their case. And very obviously true, like you said, they're not going to give all their cards away. But then she spoke about discovery when she said that, the defense didn't have these things. And he brought up the fact check that showed, and he didn't read it, which made me want to reach through the screen and choke the ever-loving shit out of him. But they read that, they read the badly worded part of the first part that they said they gave them everything that was, consequential and things like that. But they didn't read the second part that specifically stated everything that the prosecution has, the defense has. They didn't read that little part. When I did my live reaction to it, I was yelling at the screen. I probably topped out my microphone. But literally it said that the defense had 100% of whatever the prosecution had, and they never read that part. So I was curious, is from a lawyer's point of view, is that the way it works?
No, it's not. They may know what is being used for purposes of the preliminary hearing, but that's not the full set of tools in the toolbox. It's just not. To make a civil analogy.
No. That's not what I meant. What I meant was everything that was brought up at the preliminary hearing, all the text messages and things like that, the Discord messages. Candace made the claim that the defense didn't get that. And in the document, it said they had it no later than April 1st. They had 100% of all of those materials.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't want to speak out of school here, but what I'll tell you is generally, if the court says you need to, exchange documents and the parties exchange documents by this date, it's not supposed to be a surprise at a hearing that, oh, you have this all of a sudden. The only real surprises that happen is somebody may get asked a question on cross-examination. For example, a forensics expert, Olivia, I forgot her name, the gal who was the testifying ballistics expert. For example, people may ask questions on cross-examination that somebody didn't anticipate. So facts may come out. But yeah, it's not, there's no gotcha. There's not supposed to be a gotcha card, at this stage or at any stage, really.
No, I
I have one other question that I would like to so this is something that's been brought up ever since the preliminary hearing, and it continues up until now, that if there is information that disrupts the claim or what let me rephrase. Candace made the argument that the text messages could have been doctored, that the Discord messages could have been doctored. If the defense had evidence to prove that in the contrary, that is something that they would have presented as well, to say, well, here we have potential evidence that these messages were doctored, they weren't sent by the defendant, whatever. They would have brought that forward then as well, right?
Well, it's a great question, because it is quite possible that they're only releasing the amount of evidence just enough to poke a hole in the argument. Now, the strategic decision on whether to lay out all the cards or not is something that you and I, in fact, anyone watching other than the legal teams, will never really know, right? And so I don't know. I don't know if somebody's presentation of the facts or their argument was, look, these Discord messages were altered. It is logical to conclude that the counterparty who is suggesting they're not reliable should show that they were doctored and how they were doctored, right? It is logical, particularly here where that evidence is being given weight on whether there's probable cause. So the logical conclusion is, yes, they should. They should. Now, whether they did or did not, I don't really know. I don't know that any of us really know. Unless they got up there and said, Your Honor, we don't have that evidence, or unless they decided for some reason not to present it. I think it would be imprudent if I was an attorney, right, to not poke holes in that at this stage. But remember, maybe the state feels that they have enough evidence. They have other alternative evidence that they don't want to give everything out at this stage of the probable cause level, that they're like, you know what? We don't even want to introduce this yet. Why should we educate them on the weaknesses of our case as prosecutors? Why should we do that? We have the burden of proof. The prosecutors have the burden of proof. The defense does not have to present an alternative theory. All they have to say, if this goes to trial, is prosecutors did not meet their burden of proof on any of these claims. Boom, 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 boom. They don't have to produce an alternative theory. They don't have to produce an alternative bullet. They don't have to say it was aliens. They don't have to say it was. All they have to say is they didn't meet the burden of proof.
Let me ask you one other question. Sorry that something just came up. That if, from a tactical standpoint, I guess you would say, in a trial, would there be any reason for the defense, because we're in the probable cause phase of this, to try to get it to move forward to trial? Would there be any time where you would say this is better fought in trial and we let it proceed? Or in my mind, it would be, we should be making the best possible defense now injecting whatever we can to prevent it from moving forward to trial. But is that, kind of, you're talking about the prosecution may have additional information that's going to be released. Would there be a reason for the defense to say, let's let it get to trial because we're going to get even more information, and we believe that the information exists to maybe get our client off or to get charges reduced or whatever? Is that making sense?
Can I piggyback that real quick? Because Jared, my question goes exactly with what you just said. Where a good example is Candace makes the case that she has a receipt that shows Tyler was at a restaurant pretty good distance away, and she says she knows she has proof that he was at this restaurant when the shooting happened. And at a preliminary hearing, would the defense not bring that up to be like, hey, our client was not even in the zip code? And along with Jared was saying, like, if the defense has something where they're like, hey, homeboy wasn't there, like, wouldn't that be something they'd bring up? Or is that something maybe, as Jared would say, something they'd save to trial?
No, something basic like that should absolutely get brought up, for sure. So if you have, to say it more succinctly, if you have a receipt that the potential criminal defendant here was not available to commit the act, that strikes me as evidence number one. Mm-hmm. Like, you wouldn't talk about ballistics and DNA if you had exculpatory evidence that this person couldn't have even done it because they were inebriated, they were on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, they were in Dubai, they were, right? So
right.
That is not a fact that I would want to just sit out and blow in the wind for a while. I would definitely put that forward. So unless Candace has access to evidence that defense lawyers don't have access to, which would be crazy, doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me.
I will always use the inebriated defense.
Yeah.
Always.
I have a question for you. I mean, I guess I'm looking forward to maybe the bearded lawyer coming back after he watches it, because I want to know if there's anything that Candace said that would get her in trouble if there was a defamation case in the very near future. Because I feel like that was one of the strategies, is to let her talk. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say after you hear what she said or didn't say, and see what would get her potentially in, a gotcha moment for defamation.
She and just to build off of that, Race, she actually said it. She said, I don't want to say something that'll get me in illegal trouble. She literally said it in the stream. So clearly she was getting real close to that line if she didn't cross over it. But go ahead.
No, look, two things, I guess, right? One is, can you be set up in a podcast to say something that defames somebody and face civil liability? Absolutely. Happens every single day. I get those calls every single day. 100% possible. Now, did she actually do it? I don't know, because if somebody wants to send me a clip that I can look at, because I'm probably realistically not going to listen to this, maybe while I'm at the gym, and I'm not at the gym for 3 hours. So if somebody wants to send this to me in like soundbite form, I'm happy to consider it. Here's what I would say. There is a potential for liability. For example, we know about Candace Owens and Brian Harpole, right? We know about this defamation lawsuit. If you, in your attempt to create an alternative theory, if you affirmatively accuse, I want to be very, very specific. If you make an affirmative accusation that person A is the responsible person because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think you've crossed into the territory of making a defamatory statement. It's a little slippery because the standard is not negligence. And for defamation, the standard is typically negligence. For her, on this issue, the standard is probably going to be knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard for the truth, which is an actual malice standard. It's up here, whereas negligence is here, because I have to prove that she knowingly uttered false and defamatory statements. This is the same standard that this is the same standard that was applied when CNN lost their defamation lawsuit, when a former military person sued CNN for saying he was involved with trafficking people in and out of Afghanistan, when in fact he was not. He was actually trying to help people get out. So he was able to prove that CNN questioned the veracity of their own facts. And if you question the veracity of your own facts, but you say it anyway as a fact, that's where liability happens. So if anybody watching can point me to an instance where that happened, I'm happy to opine on it. To be truthful, I'm not going to watch the whole clown show to find out where the clowns got punched. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not.
Yeah, but so like this is along the same standard with which the Macrons are suing her, where they're saying she had the information that proved what she was saying was wrong, but still chose to say it, right?
Yeah, correct. That's correct. It's 100% correct. It's the same standard in the Macron lawsuit. And that is the standard that I believe will get applied in that case. And that's still up for discussion and disputed in that case. But my point is, I don't know what positions she's taking where she has evidence to the contrary on this podcast. If you guys have examples, I'm happy to talk through them. I know a few things that she was just wrong on, as from a legal standard. But I don't know if she said anything defamatory about a particular person on that quote unquote debate. But if there's something you guys want to play,
I wish I had the clip. But it's when she backtracks and he's like, is she complicit? Is Erica complicit? And then she said what he said. What is she complicit in? Because she wouldn't answer the question, and she said complicit in making people believe the narrative. Mm-hmm. But then so that needs to be compared to everything she said on her show, right? Or the reasoning for future defamation. So do you think that the fact that she's on this debate and she says, now it's all her opinion. Now that she sent out a tweet, I'm being put on trial for my opinion. She's backtracking. What would that play into as far as defamation? If they're like trying to sue her for everything she said for 11 months and then they show this. That what I just said.
Yeah, because it becomes her opinion, and she's this whole time said it was a fact on her show, and then on the debate, I'll say, she said that it's just her opinion. So she's backed off of those claims in a way, and flipped, which I wondered the same thing, because if they go after her for defamation, doesn't that prove that she knew this whole time?
Let me say this. There's a difference between saying the government's theory sucks and Erica Kirk is complicit in the murder of Charlie Kirk because of ABC. Two totally different things. The latter will fetch you defamation liability, unquestionably. The question is always the same. The question is, the standard in defamation law is, are you publishing a false statement of fact? That's the question. Right. And if not whether you're publishing an opinion. Sometimes it's dicey. Sometimes it's not always clear. If I said, I don't trust the government's theory, the government has lied to you, they lied to you about COVID, they're lying to you about this now, things don't add up. Everything I just said is an opinion. It's protected free speech. You could say it. You could even say you believe the U.S. government's complicit in it. That's protected opinion. It's an opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But if you say that this specific person is responsible for the murder, and then you provide a factual basis for it that is just absolutely wrong, that's where defamation liability happens. That's when people call me. Candace, don't call me. I'm just saying, that's when people call me.
I got to say, the bearded lawyer kind of teased me a little bit. He said, I know things she said that were wrong, and then he didn't say them. I'm sitting here waiting in anticipation, like, tell me, brother, what did she say that was wrong?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. So, for example, something on the screen. What's this?
Hold on. Okay. So, shout out to Jen, the producer. All right, Jen, this is the initial, what is this exactly?
This is the text exchange between that Aubrey and another employee at Turning Point, where Andrew Colvett leaked it, showing that Aubrey's conversation with Candace Owens.
Got it.
She was bragging about it. And she was talking about how Candace said at the bottom, the first question, when I'm in Tennessee with Erica. Yeah.
Can you zoom in on that by any chance? Because I don't have the power to.
I can't see it
either.
Yeah, I remember this conversation,
just
though.
So you know, the important thing is, I'm asking, Candace said, I'm asking everything. First question, why did you murder your husband?
That's
exactly.
It. There it is.
Her response was, oh my gosh, I cannot.
There it is.
And I will say the best part of this text exchange was this got released. And then Aubrey and Candace, both people who were in possession of these text messages, because they were the ones that were talking, both said, well, release the whole thing, Andrew. And it was like, Andrew doesn't have the whole thing. However, both of you idiots do.
Yes.
one of you, I remember I was in Texas and this came out, and I watched Aubrey go, "Oh, why won't you release the whole thing?" And I texted Andrew. I was like, "Yo, why don't you release it? It's your text message." It was so insane to me that they wouldn't do that.
You know what? I got a bad feeling we're going to probably end up becoming the Milk Bar TV support staff, because I just thought about it. Remember that time she had that quote unquote comedian on in her studio, and he said, she said, "Tell me what you think about Erica Kerr." He said, "Oh, I don't want to say anything," and he said she did it, and they like had this big cackle. They enjoyed it, and such of that nature. That's going to come back. That's going to come back and haunt her, because that was literally in the same room that she said that she didn't know what she had said about him. Like, that's crazy work. What was the guy's name? You know the comedian
Russell Brand.
Yusef something, or he's
Muslim.
he's an older guy, but
Oh, the other.
yeah.
Awesome, Yusuf.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said it. He said she did it, and remember that. And she sat there and cackled, and she didn't correct him. Now, granted, yes, that was they would hide it under the guise of comedy, but she said it multiple times. Shout out for sure. Thank you, Jen, for that. All right, here's the word count.
That's insane.
Wow. When you see this, Beard, what do you think?
I mean, listen, I have always been told that less is more. I don't really know what to make of this chart, other than to say that Candace talks a lot. Look, was she speaking a lot because she was trying to make logical arguments and presenting evidence, and Andrew was simply asking questions and Patrick were just asking questions and she was providing answers? If that's the case, then that looks good, because that means you're giving me a lot. But the inverse is also true. If we ask questions and you're just yapping and you're not giving answers, that looks really bad.
She said a lot and said nothing at all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, it was just.
No, that's what I was going to say, is that she literally, I think she recognized that she was in the lead going into this debate, and the entire thing was run the clock. She was trying to run the clock. She gave 50-word answers to 4-word questions, and it was just one of those where she was running the clock, and she recognized that if she kept talking, she could get out of this and go have some dinner and still be perfectly fine.
Yeah, at one point, he said, "Can you just give me a yes or no answer?" She's like, "We're not doing that." I was like, what?
You usually, and this is interesting, right? Because again, as a lawyer, I'm trained to be a professional question asker. And we always know that the quality of your answers are dependent on the quality of the question. And so if you're asking somebody a question and you say, "Look, I need a yes or no answer," there are instances where you may not be able to give an unqualified yes or no.
That's
right? There are instances in that when that happens.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you should be able to clarify and quantify in your answer why you can't give a yes or no. You should be, rather than be deflective and say, "We're not going to do that." That to me is walling off an obvious weak point. But let me get to Joe's point, because I think I think I did tease a little bit and play footsies with you guys. So I'll let me just get into the part that bothered me a lot. And again, I'm a lawyer. I'm watching people who are not lawyers engage in a food fight. It's not really a debate. I don't like the structure. I don't think it was a great outcome. I thought it was a waste of a lot of time. I don't think a lot was accomplished. So I'm very critical. One of the things that people were talking about was, hearsay and the weight of hearsay evidence, right? Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
And I think the argument dispute was, well, that was hearsay and that was hearsay. What I didn't hear anybody say, which I wanted to poke my eyes out on, is what does Utah's rules of evidence actually allow at a preliminary hearing? And the answer to that is, hearsay evidence is admissible in this type of hearing.
Correct.
So this is why I say people are talking past each other. It's like, okay, that's hearsay. And your point is, the judge is the gatekeeper. There's no jury in the room. Hello? There's no jury. The judge gets to determine the weight. So admissibility at this probable cause hearing is not the same as admissibility at trial. They're two different things. So the fact that there's a lineup and says, oh, this is hearsay, this is hearsay. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of non-hearsay. There were ballistics people that testified or were subject to cross-examination. Okay, so in the truest sense, is a text message, if you're relying on the truth of the words in a text message chain and you put it up on the screen and you say, look, the people who wrote this are not here to testify, but this is what's being said. That is classic hearsay. It is true. But there's exceptions to hearsay, and there's also weight of hearsay evidence, and there's prejudice of not including it. So again, I'm a technician when it comes to this stuff, so I'm looking at it from that standpoint. But it was like nails on a chalkboard hearing just, well, that's hearsay, that's hearsay. I'm like, this is not how it works. This is not how it works.
Well, that's the thing, because she did read it, and she did say multiple times, well, Utah, she was insinuating that the law of Utah is a hurting Tyler Robinson because Utah is allowing it. So she read the law, she understood it. She said, well, Utah law allows it, for it to be admissible, or the judge allowed it, but that's not unfair. Essentially, that's what she made it seem.
And it is absolutely fair because the rules absolutely allow it. I guess that's my point. It's the rules specifically say that the judge has the ability. It's Rule 1102, if I'm not mistaken, in Utah, and it actually gives you a relaxed standard for this kind of hearing. So I disagree. I just disagree. She's wrong on the law, right? So
I
this
have
is
a
one of those things where
question.
yes.
So one of the other things that she casted doubt on, not only the law being fair for Tyler, but she also casted doubt on the fact that the documents that stated that the parents are the ones who turned him in and noticed, recognized him on the cameras and all that, the statement of for the warrant. She casted doubt that she said anybody could have written that, or this person could have wrote that. It wasn't the parents. And I'm like, they would not have submitted it if it was false, but Andrew didn't push back on that. So had it been false, isn't that a huge issue? Isn't that a big red flag and easy to debunk?
And just to be clear, you're talking about the charging document.
Yes, the charging document.
Yes.
She casted doubt on that statement. She said it was Mike something that was the one that wrote
I forgot
it.
his name.
And I'm like, they wouldn't have accepted
in the debate,
it.
she claimed that the charging document was written by a third person who wasn't there.
Right. So if I remember correctly, and tell me, I want to make sure I got Candace's argument. She's essentially saying, how do we know Tyler wrote these communications? Am I right? How do we know he wrote these communications? Someone else could have written them.
No. She's not talking about the communication. What she was directly questioning the charging document, saying that the charging document was written by somebody who was a third party and heard it from everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once again, a charging document, I think a judge understands what a charging document is. And this is the problem, right? The evidence is not being produced in a vacuum. The judge is listening and knows what to give it weight and what not to give weight in a charging document. If somebody is, for example, let me give you a completely different example to make this really, really simple. Let's say there's an automobile accident. And an automobile accident happens, officer makes a report. Person who was driving car A hit the person driving car B. And person A gives a statement, person B gives a statement. It's in the police report, okay? Now we're at trial. There's person A available, there's person B, there's no police officer. The second somebody tries to introduce the police officer's report, there's an objection on hearsay because it is an out-of-court statement. Police is not there to be cross-examined. That's a valid evidentiary objection, okay? However, if person A testifies and says, well, this is what happened at the crime scene or at the accident scene, and that's what happened, somebody could introduce the report to say, but that's not what you told the officer, because that's being used for a different purpose. What I'm trying to illustrate is evidence, charging document, text message chain, whatever, something that could be hearsay, something that could be written by a third party that's out of court. It could be used for something. This is my point about how trials generally work. It could be used for something. It's what the something that it's being used for is what matters. And judges know this. Judges are experts in this. This whole hearing is evidentiary in nature. So to suggest that there was some mistake about using that or not, I mean, I think that's a hokey argument. Is that what you're getting at? That she kind of made it sound like, tell me what you're saying, you know, the conclusion
So
of the.
Andrew had, said, well, the parents, with the friend, the sheriff turned him in. They recognized them on the surveillance footage that was, put out for finding the culprit. And they turned it, and then Candace said, well, that statement on the charging documents detailing what was said, detailing that the parents with the sheriff went to the precinct to turn Tyler in, that statement in its entirety was written by somebody else. So then it could have been, I don't know what she's insinuating. She's never direct with her accusations. So she didn't say, they made it up, but she also just casted doubt on it. Like, is it really even reliable?
So it's a valid question. So let me say this. If a person says, if Candace's point is, hey, we haven't heard that directly from the parents' mouths.
Yeah.
That is a valid evidentiary question. But this is where I think people go too far. If she says, therefore, the parents never identified him, that's a leap that goes way overboard. And I do find that she did that a lot. Like, I'll give you another very palpable example for me. Ballistics is a big part of this case, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not a big ballistics guy. Frankly, I'm not a ballistics expert at all. I've shot guns a few times. I own 6 of them. I don't even think I understand how bullets work properly, okay? That's about the expertise I have. But when I listen to these experts, I'm fascinated by the examination and their cross-examination. And one of the things that I think Candace said was, let's talk about, the bullet doesn't match the rifle. Okay, let's talk about this logic for a second. I think Candace emphasized, somebody fact check me on this, that the trigger guard, the ballistics was inconclusive. Ballistics was inconclusive, and therefore Tyler Robinson should be washed from this. I wanted to just jump out of a window because inconclusive is not the same as excluded.
Right.
Okay, they are 2 totally different things. If the examiner says we can't identify it, we can't confirm that this bullet came from this rifle, it's inconclusive both ways. It doesn't mean it is or it isn't. That's the definition of inconclusive. Okay? The examiner could have said, well, I don't know for sure that this bullet definitely did, but here are all the reasons why we can say it absolutely did not. Boom, 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 boom. That's not what happened. So again, I think Candace argues in a way that she is giving way too much weight and too many inferences that are just not true. So basically tweaking the facts or putting spin or gloss on what actually happened at the hearing.
And Beard, let me jump on that real quick and ask you a question. The charging documents, let's just say for easy understanding, the charging documents have 10 people who have been addressed in here. Lance,
you said
parents,
the charging documents. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The charging document. And so that was on quote unquote trial yesterday with Andrew and Candace. She was saying that this is hearsay, blah, 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 blah. But the charging documents don't mean that the person won't come to trial to actually testify. Am I correct?
That's correct. This is an example.
Right. So if, in the example, let's say that on the charging documents, they say Beard said XYZ ABC. Now, and Candace would say, well, that's hearsay because we don't know what Beard said. He can't be cross-examined, blah, blah, blah. Well, at trial, Beard walks into court to give his testimony, and it substantiates what's said in the charging documents. That doesn't mean that it was hearsay. It just means that we're giving you a run of play, kind of giving you the script, and the actual play, the actual movie will be played out with real, actual humans on court. Is that fair?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's summarizing a factual basis. It's not the evidence that is being presented.
That's what I'm saying. because she treats it, and I think I'm sad. I think she actually believes this is the evidence.
No.
The charging document is the evidence.
Completely wrong. If somebody says, Robinson's parents recognized him and confronted him, and the only evidence we have is this charging document, that's not what happened. That's not what's happening.
Correct.
That's a misreading. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And wait,
Go ahead, Joe.
I just had a quick question because something regarding, and again, not a ballistics expert whatsoever under any circumstances. I've shot a lot of guns. Madly disappointed that you have 6 guns. You said you've only shot them a few times. We got to hang out more often. I'm going to tell you right now, we'll shoot them guns. But my point is a big thing she talked about, and this was a big thing early on, is that she talked about the degradation of the prints, right? Is that there were 4 to 5 sets of prints. And her argument was, and the way she definitely tried to wordsmith this a little bit. She said, oh, well, Tyler Robinson's prints were the most degraded of the 4 prints on the gun. And in my mind, and maybe, again, this is coming from somebody who's just watched way too much Law and Order. My thought process was, well, maybe he was the first person who thought I need to wipe my prints from this gun. But that was her argument, was by the fact that his prints were the most degraded. Therefore, he couldn't have been the most recent person to fire this weapon.
Yeah. So let's talk about degraded, because it's the exact same logical fallacy that happened with the DNA issue or the bullet didn't match the rifle. So saying that somebody's fingerprint is degraded, okay, doesn't mean that it's not their fingerprint. Or it doesn't mean that they didn't touch the weapon. I think, again, she's inferring too much from a true fact. It is true that the evidence was degraded, okay? And that's okay. But there was also testimony, and the language is important. The expert testified something like the trigger and the guard profile had like a 1 trillion times more likelihood if Robinson was a major contributor plus 3 unknown people than if 4 unrelated people contributed that. I mean, think about that. That is significant. That's substantial. And that alone may cross into the barrier of probable cause being shown in the judge's mind. Okay. You don't need a clean, let me say it this way. On the whole, with all of the evidence, the fingerprint alone is not going to tell the story. It's a part of a bigger picture. So the fact that it was degraded, again, I think she's running with this too far. It was degraded, but that doesn't mean anything beyond that.
I think it's important too to note that, and I don't know if any of you all noticed this or not, she was using, when she and Andrew were going back and forth, there was a misuse or I guess a interchangeability in her, what she was saying between DNA and fingerprints. She kept flip-flopping, like consistently saying the DNA, the fingerprint, the 2 very different things. First off, DNA versus the fingerprints. But to kind of like, just so for folks that might be watching, to kind of tie a bow around this, back to the hearsay stuff, because I was going to ask you about this earlier. Hearsay is admissible and is allowable, but it has to be, and it is in this case, in conjunction with all this other stuff we're talking about. So am I correct in that?
Correct. Meaning the judge is weighing the evidence in its totality to see if it reaches the burden of proof that needs to be established, which is right now, I would say the burden has been met, but it's a probable cause standard, correct? And right. So something that may be hearsay at trial, when the actual trial occurs, may be given some weight and admissible for purposes of the probable cause hearing.
Okay. So just to kind of like tie it together, it's that when she takes a thing and says this is hearsay, therefore we as the non-lawyer types and people out here looking at this case, we should just pull that out because it's hearsay, even though it's allowable under 1102 in was it Rule 1102 in Utah?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's black and white wrong. She's wrong on that. This is black and white.
Right. But I'm just saying this is for people out there when they're trying to make an argument with another Candace person that it's, look, she pulled this one piece of thing that in and of itself is wrong, but this is also one little piece of the puzzle that includes all this other stuff as well. So you can't just say that all right, it's hearsay. Let's grant that even though she's 100% wrong, that is taken out. There's still all this other stuff to go along with it, and this is a component of the overall picture that is moving it forward to trial. Right?
Correct. And whether probable cause is met or not, I can promise you that the probable cause standard will not be met with only hearsay evidence. That's not how this works either. So that's just something that's an argument, that's a throw-out argument. And this is why I don't think this was a debate, because if you're going to debate evidence, you should come prepared with either a lawyer's opinion or be a lawyer yourself. Otherwise, it's people talking around in circles about their feelings is kind of how it feels to me.
Let me jump on here. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's just pretend last week, Beard, you got a phone call, and it was Candace and Andrew was on the phone, and they said, we want you to help us structure this as a real bona fide debate. What would it have looked like if Beard had set this up from, and you can get out of the studio, you can set a table up, whatever, jousting match, whatever. What would you have set it up to look like if you had wanted it to be a true debate between person and not worrying about the actual evidence, but what would it look like? Go.
Well, the first thing you would have done is take a piece of that 300K.
Well, there's that. He would.
So where does this 300K
it'd been called a
come from?
retainer.
What is the 300K? I don't know about this. What is this?
Andrew paid Candace $300,000 for that debate, that conversation. That was the most expensive 3-hour coffee date on the history of ever.
That's probably the only reason she did it. Just saying.
Hands down. No question about it.
Wow.
So yeah, he paid her $300K to do it.
I would have bought a 911 Turbo with that money, but that's just me. I wouldn't have paid her for a debate. But hey, to each their own.
I do love it when bearded lawyer talks dirty.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, so what I would do, here's the exact format. I would put a table together of, by the way, let me take a step back. Who asked for the debate? So obviously Andrew asked Candace to do the debate. So what I would have done if I was Andrew, and I'm kind of shocked he didn't do this. I think this is a stupid move on his part. I would have put each statement that I wanted to probe on a physical sheet or document on a screen share so viewers can track, and I would have put it up. Bullet point 1, Robinson's DNA was on the trigger. Candace, you don't agree or you disagree? Well, it's degraded. Well, what's your factual basis for why the state can't meet probable cause? What's your alternative theory? Did somebody let's do it like this. Boom, boom, boom. And actually, that's how things actually happen at the hearing. That's how they're supposed to happen. It's in a very, very tight checklist ABC manner. I would have put all of her statements, whether it was her tweets, Andrew's tweets, I would have compared them so that we can actually do an apples to apples comparison, right? And we can talk in an educated manner about what the theories are and what the evidence is. It was just really hard to follow. It just, it became like, you ever go to a family reunion and you see people you haven't seen in a while and you're just like disgruntled about what they gave you for Christmas or something or a birthday? It really was like that. I'm just like, I have no interest in watching that. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
So how would you have set it up? Would you have had it, a desktop, tables across from one another? How would you have set it up in the physical sense?
Yeah, I would say, look, I would say, bring two people with you who are in your camp, sit at a table, face each other, opposite sides of the room, not sitting across from each other. And somebody who's the actual mediator will ask the questions, or the host will ask the questions and then hear an answer. That way it's not arguing over each other and you're not talking past each other. And the true neutral would determine if the question was answered, reflect on what was said. And the reason I'm saying bring two people at the table is this whole thing about the earpieces and like reading in. I don't really like that. Come prepared, bring your stuff, have the questions in advance. There's no gotcha moments. And have somebody at your table who's prepared to speak on your behalf. So that's how I would have done it.
I think that's a good point, that if they had sent questions in advance, that would have been even better for our side of this, for Andrew's side of this, because you then had time to prepare. And if you still didn't answer the question, that looks even more damning on your side. So the fact that it was impromptu, people could say, oh, this, she didn't know, or this, that, and the other, But yeah, if you gave it to her in advance, I think that's a very good point.
At
Then
the bare minimum, a topic, like at the bare minimum, you know.
Yeah.
well, and I think that her defending her claims is what we all wanted to see. It's what we did not get, but it's also there've also been so many that there's half of it they didn't even cover. That there's
Half.
topics that they didn't even touch because it's been a year accumulating every cockamamie story you could think of. That when she's gish galloping and dancing around the question and then never answering, they didn't even get to. They didn't get to a fraction of what she has said over the past.
I think
I think Jared's 100% right, because
I agree.
she really did employ every single tactic she had for not answering questions. And the beautiful thing about this format is Andrew could have given her all of these questions. He could have said, "You said Erica was complicit. You said dude
Why didn't he do
stumbled
that?
in a skiff," right?
Yeah.
Why didn't he do that? I think that's asinine to pay somebody $300,000 and have them sit and cherry pick and that's horrible. That's not a debate at all.
I think he was
imagine
more scared he would get denied the debate. I honestly think that he was willing to take what he could get, and he was scared he wouldn't get the debate. I honestly think in his head he thought the opportunity to make money off of being the only person who has confronted Candace Owens on this would outweigh the money he had to pay, and he was more interested in having the debate than doing well at it.
I think it's a mistake, because what that tells me is I'm always skeptical of people who purport to be about justice and truth, but all they care about is eyeballs and money.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I have a big problem with people who have a microphone and just want eyeballs, and they don't give a shit what they say. Pardon my French. They just want to say things and build a clan, and I use that word purposefully. I'm concerned about that. That bothers me. I'm a guy. I'm not a content creator. I'm a lawyer first, and always will be. I just happen to get invited on podcasts. I shoot my own opinion on things, and I have a big mouth, so it's easy. But I always try to speak factually. I always try to speak with a point. I don't try to say. I could tell you 20 things right now that make everyone go, "Oh my God, wow!" Probably get some great sound bites for Instagram Reels and TikTok that add zero value to the practical discussion at hand. And so whether it's Andrew or Candace or both, I don't like formats like that. I think that it doesn't do a justice to people. If you want to frame things as, "Oh, we're bringing Candace and we're going to have a debate," do it properly. Put her on the spot. And you know what? If you're not going to get a chance to do it, then don't do it at all. That's what I would say. Because what's the difference between this and a passing Twitter commentary back and forth? Like, it's the same damn thing.
So do you all
Easy.
think that
Good
they
point.
probably discussed it before? And because he didn't bring up any of like the Egyptian planes, things like that. Do you think that was a part of the agreement? Because they took forever to go live. I thought she was backing out. I was like, she's going to say she's in labor. Like,
Right.
No, I honestly
very
think
well.
that before they started this, they definitely had an agreement of things he couldn't talk about. And I think they probably dropped it on him when he showed up.
That's what I was wondering.
He was 100% under a non-disclosure of if we're going to do this, sign this first. And now we're going to communicate to you all the things you don't get to say. Because, let's be real. All of us online, we had a lot of questions for Candace.
For sure.
He asked the absolute weakest ones.
Yeah.
He asked, if we had 10 questions that we needed answered from Candace, he asked 8 and 9.
The
probably
Mitch Snow. People in the comments are like, Mitch Snow. I agree. That should have been brought up.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest ones. One of the basis of her claim was that a guy was on Fort Huachuca, where I went to interrogation school. Guy was on Fort Huachuca. You cannot walk into a building in Fort Huachuca accidentally. But apparently this guy accidentally walked into a skiff. Which I'll tell you right now, if you guys want to understand how secure a skiff is, the skiff we were in Yemen, we got kicked out of country because we were having a top secret briefing, and the ambassador, who only had a secret clearance, wanted to come in and we wouldn't let him. And the next day, suddenly, not because he was delicate, because we had to go, of course, we got kicked out of the country. That's how secure a skiff is. You do not accidentally go into a skiff. You definitely don't go accidentally walk into a skiff where people are planning the assassination of an American citizen. But that's what we were supposed to believe with Mitch Snow, a civilian who was already wanted by the military, found himself on the military intelligence base of the military.
On accident.
On accident. Yeah, he just happened to be there. And then he wandered into a skiff and happened to see the head of Turning Point USA Security in the briefing. Like the level of insanity required to believe that is, you know what? It's not even a level of insanity. It's a level of stupidity required to believe. Like, you don't have to be stupid. You have to be a moron
to believe that. Right.
And again, what he asked her about was, he was like, well, you know, what about the roof? And it was like, bro, did you get told there were things you couldn't ask? Like, what does your non-disclosure look like? Because I want that lawyer. Whoever wrote that non-disclosure, I want that lawyer.
I don't think that well, if he did, I think he should come out and say that he did, because he doesn't have to say that. You could say that I had to sign an NDA, but we got a lawyer here. I guess I could ask him, but you can sign an NDA, but I can't say what I wasn't allowed, or I can't talk about the contents of that NDA. Correct?
Well, certain NDAs, like ones that I write, the existence of it itself is confidential. So that could
really.
Yeah. Oh, we do that all the time.
Otherwise, guys like me will come from the military and go, I did a lot of cool shit. Can't tell you about it because I signed an NDA. It's not the way it actually works.
If you disclose the fact that there is an NDA, there are inferences that can be drawn from that alone. So if I'm trying to protect a client from whatever it is, I want the existence of the document itself to be confidential. I don't want people to lecture on the fact that there is an NDA.
So then this is what I would have done. If Andrew did sign an NDA before he did that, this is just Jared's opinion. He should have said, absolutely not, under no circumstances. If you're going to make me sign this and you're going to restrict what I'm allowed to ask you, I'm walking out of here. I would have gotten on a Facebook Live and said, all right, guys, here's the deal. I'm getting back in the car. She wanted an NDA. She didn't want me to talk about Mitch Snow. She didn't want me to talk about Egyptian planes. She didn't want me to talk about this. I refused to sign an NDA. And she still got my $300K, so I guess I'm going to go find a good lawyer and see if I can get it back.
Maybe it's just my cheap self, but if I give you $300K and I'm going to have to sue you to get it back, and I'm at the end of a long line behind the French president and the head of Turning Point, like I might go along with it because I think I might still get you, just because suing Candace, like, I mean,
everybody
you might as well be. It'll be quicker to wait at a ride at Disney before you get to do that.
Yeah, but think about what the messaging behind that to say that she is like, that would have been more valuable to me as a viewer than the debate itself. And he had no way of knowing how the debate was going to go. But to say that she wanted to restrict what he was allowed to ask, that to me speaks volumes. And I don't know. But yeah, that's what
I agree.
But that sounds like.
I have a thing to say about there's a super chat. Someone said that they were fighting over semantics about the charges. Now that we have an attorney here, everyone understands that wasn't the biggest important thing that happened, but all of Candace's followers are claiming that he got owned because he didn't know the specifics of the charges. And I looked up the differences between the murder and the aggravated murder. And the only difference is endangering other people around him. So what would you have said to Candace if she said, well, you don't even know the charges? It was not murder. It was aggravated murder.
Wait, can I also point out that the defense has submitted a filing to say that it wasn't aggravated murder, therefore the death penalty is not on the table?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which is
but that's
a great
all
point.
I have right now. But what would you say to, like, if you were in that conversation and she was like, well, it's not murder, it's aggravated murder?
Yeah, well, I would say it's great. It's important to get the charges right. But we apply evidence to each charge. So whether he's being charged with aggravated murder, first-degree murder, felony murder, misdemeanor, the question is, what evidence exists to substantiate the charge? I think it is a little silly. I mean, if, again, going into a debate, I would have had the charges printed in my hand. Okay, that's a little weak. I'm just being straight. If I'm Andrew,
No, I agree.
I look weak as hell that I didn't know the charges. Now, the fact that you didn't know the charges, I don't have the charges memorized either. But I'm also not paying somebody $300,000 to have a debate that's going to be streamed to millions of people to look like a goofball. So I would have said, let's look at the charges. Let's pull up the charges. Let's look at the elements of each crime that is being charged. And let's put, again, let's be organized. Let's put a chart of what you think the evidence is to support the burden of proof to move this to trial. I would have brought it right back to where it's supposed to be. Instead, it became, it's almost like, to me, again, this is not exactly what happened, but to me, in my ears, I'm hearing my feelings are hurt because you don't believe me. And, you know, the earth is flat. And this is on both sides. Too, on both sides.
She probably does think that.
I think she's a flat earther.
No, the earth isn't flat. It's centered around Candace.
So that means it's a donut. Okay, got it. So yeah. I think she believes that though. I'm sorry, but that's a great point. Thank you, Beard. And great question. All right. Who would you have?
But remember, you are talking about a woman who married a gay man.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Hey, Baron Coleman does that all the time. He adds allegedly to everything. It's like a punctuation mark. My name is Jason. Allegedly. And I literally his
name. I expect his name to be at allegedly Baron Coleman.
Right.
Yes.
So Beard, who would you have liked? Let's say that they did have a proper debate format, which would have been amazing to start with. Who do you think would have been a good moderator, in your opinion?
I would have moderated it very well, better than probably most people. They should have called me. My DMs are open. Next time you want to do this, somebody asked me to do this because it was hard to watch. So now that I'm not available to do that because it's already happened, I don't know. Maybe Judge Judy. I would have loved to see Judge Judy moderate this. Could you imagine her?
That would have been fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, because the second somebody starts talking and they're like 30 seconds off, she would have been like,
oh my God! I never thought of Judge Judy. That is so.
Judge Judy would have been excellent.
She would have, but here's the thing: she would have stole the show.
If Judge Judy is watching this, or eventually watches this when it gets clipped, for God's sakes, moderate this shit and moderate it and weigh into everybody. She would be an excellent. Short of her, really? I mean, I don't know. That's the best name I can think of. She's the most appropriate.
She wouldn't put up with Candace. That she would be like, get to the point.
I think she would call people out on a lot of things that were said. And one of the things that I think Andrew said that made him look bad and weak was, look, guilt is not an abstract concept. So when you come to a debate just saying this person's guilty, the way to do that without losing credibility, again, if you're talking about a criminal probable cause hearing, which is what's been talked about, you would describe the elements of what's being charged and the weight of that evidence, okay?
Right.
I think he did a disjustice or an injustice by just being conclusive with things and just saying, well, there are fingerprints and he obviously did it, or there's overwhelming evidence, I think he said at one point. And again, that's not the standard, okay? The standard is whether there's probable cause sufficient to move this forward to a criminal trial. You can frame it as there's DNA evidence, there's surveillance, there's alleged admissions, there's rifle evidence, there's ballistics. Everything holistically says that there's sufficient enough evidence to move this to trial. We're not at a trial. We're way before a trial. There's not been a full presentation. So if you're going to be objective, and I understand that podcasters and content creators are not objective often, you can't presume guilt. You work with the evidence and you say what the evidence cuts in whichever way it cuts. You have to be objective about it.
Are you saying that we might be biased
I think
I'm
everybody's
offended.
biased.
I'm offended.
Dare you?
I think everyone is biased. It's acknowledging that you have a bias that is the honorable thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has a bias. There's not a single judges have biases. That's why there's such a thing called recusal. And we look down upon in our profession. If you have a bias towards something or someone, you should recuse yourself. And if you do it and you sit through a trial anyway and it comes out later, you could lose your seat as a judge, right? It's a bad credibility hit. So everybody's biased. I mean, there's no 100% everyone's biased.
I have a question. Do you think it's going to be hard to pick a jury for this case because of how much attention that Candace Owens has brought to it?
It's a legitimate question. I mean, there's a chance that this gets moved to a different district. There's a very high chance. I mean, it happens. It's something that justice may require at this point. There's been so much media on it. The question is, if it's not fair where it is now, where is it going to be fair?
Well,
Somebody said
think
Amish
there's
in the
going to be. I think there is going to be a ton of social media deletion when we start picking a jury. Like there are going to be people like, oh, I got a jury notice. Okay, let me go delete my ex real quick, like because I think there's going to be so much social media deletion with this.
Yeah.
I have to go here in a second, but I just wanted to see if you guys knew. I haven't been online much today. But when did Andrew say that he was going to release those texts? Did he detail anything?
He said today, and then he didn't.
No,
I think
that's
he's
great.
I'm pretty sure he's going to delete them. I mean, he's going to upload them right along with the Egyptian plane data. I'm sorry. I personally, I don't care if those things were totally made up. I really don't.
But wait,
Because
I'm gonna be real, JWhit. Is there anybody on the internet who gives a shit about Andrew backing his claims? Like that was not why we watched this debate.
No.
None of us watched this to be like, oh, I can't wait to hear Andrew defend the state's case. No, we were like, yo, this crazy bitch has said some stuff. I want to hear her. And we never got to hear that.
I don't remember, so I didn't make a post about it. I was like, oh, he read a text. And I didn't see
It was
a
in the
lot of
opening
other
salvo.
creators. Well, yeah, and I saw a lot of other creators didn't make posts about it. So I agree. I think most people were like, okay, well, come on, Candace.
Can I got to go here in a minute, and I just
I got to go now. So
Yeah.
I'll let
Thank you so
guys
much,
go.
Nish.
Thank you guys.
Nish,
Bye.
thank you.
Niche.
Yesterday, I think everybody saw that Luigi Mangione pled guilty, right? Yesterday in the federal court to stalking charges and admitted under oath that he targeted and shot Brian Thompson, right?
Oh, yep.
There's an analogy here, and I want to make it. His lawyers are now using that, by the way, to basically say the New York charges should be dismissed because it's double jeopardy. He's going to plead guilty. Interestingly enough, for 2 years now, almost 2 years, the world watched and got to hear the evidence that might get presented at this trial, and what the jury would hear. And, there's forensics, there's writings, there's a backpack. But what actually happened in the trial, and this is what matters, the judge gets presented with the evidence, motions are filed to suppress, and guess what? A judge actually ruled in that case that the police conducted an unlawful seizure of his backpack and suppressed evidence. So when people look back, right, and I think, by the way, the result of that suppression motion and the ruling was the magazine, the cell phone, the passport, the wallet, the computer chip, whatever was in the backpack is not coming into trial to prove guilt or innocence for that matter. The reason why that matters is because where we are now is miles before where Luigi Mangione is. And so to make a conclusion on guilty, which is a legal framing, okay, not how I feel about whether somebody did something or not, right? What do your instincts tell you? That's a different question. When you ask somebody, is somebody guilty? That is a legal question. We won't ever know how that evidence would have played out in court because it was suppressed. It was excluded. And similarly, where we are now with, with this trial, evidence may get suppressed. DNA evidence may not come in. We don't know what's going to happen. So, and that's why I'm critical of people when they say, well, overwhelmingly, he's obviously guilty. No, but we can frame it as, if you have an alternative theory, where's your evidence on that?
Mm,
I like it.
that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
And,
but,
got you.
but that's 1,000% right, and that's what should have been addressed
Correct.
in this debate. It was
Somebody
like,
get me as a mediator. Can somebody get me? Do you guys have connections? Can I
No, but
mediate
that-
this one? If you're watching and you have a connection to this, somebody get me as a mediator because I won't tolerate nonsense. I would get into it.
But that's where I'll give Andrew credit. There was a part of this debate where he said nobody has a problem with you not believing the federal narrative. Like, because let's be real, none of us have a trust of the federal government. By the way, anybody in the chat, if you have a trust of the federal government, please know that you're very obviously retarded, right? Right? But nobody has a trust of the federal government. If you just do a couple Google searches, you'll be done with it. So none of us have a trust of the federal government. Nobody had an issue with that. If you want to question the narrative, and this is where I've given classes on debating, and I actually call this jacking off. JAQING. It's the just asking questions narrative. Where you present your facts and you pretend you're just asking a question, but you continue to make assertions based upon questions, just asking questions. And that's the reality is like, sure, if Candace came out here and said, well, I got questions about this, or I got questions about this, I have no doubt that everybody on this panel would have been like, I got you back on this. I'm with you. Like, cool, they need to explain this. We'll wait till trial. If they don't present this evidence, we'll continue to question it with you. But that's not what she did. What she did was make assertions.
Yep.
She made claims. And as all of us as content creators, we know that when you make a claim, especially if you're a conservative content creator, when you make a claim and it's wrong, ooh, you're going to live with that for quite some time, right? Like when people backed up the Mom Donnie's wife's making $400,000 supporting the housing initiative. Bullshit story. Had we made claims on that, now we're going to deal with every comment section going, oh, this is that bitch that was wrong about that, right? And that's the reality. That's what she's dealing with. But she's playing it like she's the victim because she's making insane claims under the guise of just questioning the narrative. We all support questioning the narrative, especially when it comes to the death of Charlie. If the government was involved, we'll burn this motherfucker down. Let me tell you right now, like I'm with you. I'll set the fire myself on camera. But we're all evidence-based people, especially on the conservative side. We are evidence-based people. We go with the evidence. What we don't do is accuse people, good people, of doing bad things without evidence. And I feel like over the last year, that is what has separated people like us, people like Claire, people like Jared, people like Mohammed, like, I don't know how to say that first name. Is Rais. I'm sorry, I didn't want to mispronounce. People like JWhit, people like Jen, people like Gary, is that all we've done is say, hey, give me some evidence and I'm on your side. And she has failed to do that.
Yeah, and they try to scare people away, I think, from this perspective, from our perspective, because it's the old saying that, you know, if everything's a conspiracy, if you believe everything's a conspiracy, you're an idiot. If you believe that nothing is a conspiracy, you're an idiot. Like there's middle ground there, right? And by sitting in the middle ground, by not becoming polarized, we're fed slop. We're feds.
Yeah.
$7,000. We're, you know, everything that they can throw at people. And all we're trying to do is be reasonable about it. And there's no room for that on their side. And you're right. If there is evidence, we will happily change our opinion and move in the other direction. But the evidence so far tells a different story from what she is saying. And to the same thing that Rais has been saying, you got another theory. Show me your evidence. And let's see what passes the smell test. We'll bump one up against the other. I think that's a perfect point. Joe.
I think it's crazy too that people stopped caring about the quality of a question or a conspiracy. Any question will do. And it's absolutely asinine things, as we've seen with the Egyptian planes and, you know, the man walking on into a meeting. Like, it's craziness. And people have just ate it up. And all of us are like, wait, you can't prove that. There's no way to prove it. Why are you saying this in public as it's a fact. If you were just asking questions, I would be like, okay, I mean, that's a dumb question, but sure. But you're saying this is what happened and I have evidence and blah, 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 and I'll release it in 10 days, but you have to watch all my episodes and pay $9.95. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
kept bringing that up.
I
this
kind of
goes
want to
to-
say, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I had to switch it up. You said 7K. I had to switch it
Oh,
up to
I
my
love
7K
that.
club hat. I
Oh,
had to switch
nice.
it up to the 7K club. Just so y'all know, this is from Israel. Underneath it tells us what we get when we get into Benjamins. And inside it says, I made the video. Now pay me my money. I just had
I
to be
need
real.
one of those.
Little self-promotion. Sorry.
That's
Couldn't help
hilarious.
it.
I love it.
No, what I was going to say is I think the money side of it is what drives it. So making any claim, because Ray talked about this a little while ago, that a microphone ought to cost $1 million. So many people can come on and make content. You can say what you want to say. You can ride the coattails. In fact, Candace Owens made a whole career out of this. This is what she did, was she rode the coattails of more successful people. She went from doing a doxing website to, PragerU and the Daily Wire and Charlie Kirk. And now she's got her own show. And I believe, much like Tucker Carlson, she needed the guardrails and she sat within certain parameters when she worked for people, but doesn't know how to handle it once she gets out. But the people that come on these successful movements, based on what I firmly believe are lies and deception and all this that she has done, they can pop on and just exponentially increase her reach and the nonsense, and they make a ton of money doing it. We don't, by the way. I should point out that the people that sit on our side, while I was listening to a panel the other day of some of these folks, and they were saying what's Andrew going to benefit from this? He's going to, all these channels that follow
A lot.
No. This is what they were
Do
saying.
you notice all these creators on this live talking about him?
Yeah.
This is his upgrade from debating hoes on the whatever podcast.
Right.
It is.
But the point that they were making, that they were saying, was these channels that take the Fed slop narrative, as they say, they're all tanking and they're doing poor and they don't get as much reach. And then they went in the same line of conversation to say, oh, well, they're just in it for the money, for the grift. Yet the whole argument they're making is, in the kind of the comparison is, see how many clicks we get. Clicks and, entertainment value, whatever it is, that makes us right. Candace is right because she's big. And the whole thing, it's a bunch of people who understand they can make a ton of money and they don't see the responsibility in owning a microphone and a video camera.
Exactly.
They don't take it seriously, and they say, I can say whatever I want. And people, the point we've been trying to make all night is that it's directed at specific people to bring specific people down. And that's where, we're getting in some real moral, dicey territory morally, I believe, and legally.
What I like to say is, a huge platform gives you a huge microphone, but not a lower level of responsibility.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think the bigger the microphone, the bigger the responsibility you have. And whenever I hear irresponsible creators who, and again, I don't think there's anything wrong. I hope this video gets 5 million views and 5 million shares.
I agree with that.
5 million likes.
I concur with
And
your message.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the eyeballs should be a consequence of telling the right message.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It should not be the inverse, where you care about eyeballs regardless of the cost of the message. That, to me, I have a problem with. Now, First Amendment protects your right to say things. It doesn't mean everybody should be saying things. I've said that many, many times. Just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean everybody should be doing it. And there's some people that just should STF you. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what I've learned as a lawyer doing this for 16 years.
No, but I think along with what Jared said was like those people who are going along with the narrative, they get less views. But let's be real, guys. Agreeing with things, all of us as content creators, we know that the way to grow is not to agree with people, right? Like we've never gotten, none of our hit videos are like, oh my God, I agree with what everyone says, right? All of our big videos are, Well, let me tell you why everybody's stupid and I'm brilliant, right? That is what makes a viral video. It's the girl who comes on, like the most viral video on social media right now is a girl who said that she was cheated on by George Washington. Like that's the most viral video right now. It's filled. Her entire chat is filled with guys who changed their name to the founding fathers' names and are now assaulting her and playing like they cheated on her and she used them. Right? Ridiculousness in arguing the narrative and fighting the mainstream media thought is what gets views. The problem is that Candace plays like she's being an investigator. When really she is the National Enquirer of the internet. Like,
no
I
doubt.
feel like if the Charlie Kirk trial wasn't happen, I would check into her to see what happened with the latest aliens on Earth. Right? She's so divorced from reality, so divorced from facts, but we're giving her credit, just like that aunt who reads the National Enquirer and you're like, you hear about that spaceship that landed in the backyard, right? And that's what we're giving credence to because that's what's fun. Believing the federal narrative, boring. It's really boring to be like, Tyler Robinson shot him. He's going to be put on trial. There's going to be evidence. But you know what's fun? Everybody's involved in it. We got this French/baguette/US, hit squad that's in the US and they're staying at Holiday Inns. Well, we got them because it wasn't Holiday Inn Express and they rented Priuses because they're also Greenpeace. And like that's what's fun. But we also have to understand that a conspiracy theory is the realm of the stupid person. Yeah. It's the person who cannot understand facts and is focused on what is exciting.
Yeah, you know what's funny too is that Candace and Tucker were on the cover of the Globe like a couple months ago, and when I saw that, my friend said it to me, and I was like, I knew it. They're like the National Enquirer. They're on the cover of the Globe.
That's wild.
Guys,
Beard, before you leave, do you mind telling everybody where to find you, what you do, and why they need to go find you? This is your sales pitch. So go ahead and tell them why they need to go subscribe. If the moderators could please make sure we drop the Beard Lawyers links and all that in the chat. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Beard Lawyer on pretty much all socials. I'm very active on Instagram, Beard Lawyer, on TikTok, same handle. My Instagram, or excuse me, my TikTok's slightly different. It's the real Beard Lawyer. And you'll see I'm verified. Beards. And then my YouTube is beard.lawyer. So check me out. And yeah, look, if you have questions, people are welcome to send me questions and topics they want to talk about, or if you guys want to have me back, do another one-off or talk about something, I'm happy to oblige. And if somebody wants me to moderate an actual debate, somebody hit me up. I'm happy to do that too.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Beard. I think you were about to say you're going to bug out.
I'm going to bug out, and everybody should keep up the great work. I appreciate the discussion. This is good for your audiences to hear. So,
love it, man. Thank you so much, friend. Everybody type Beard in the chat. Thank you so much, friend, for stopping through, my friend.
Later, Beard. Thank you so much for being here. I do love the fact that we had a lawyer on here and we actually hit him up for legal stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
As it should be. I stay in my domain of expertise. I won't talk guns. I will talk law, though.
There we go.
All right, guys.
Take care. We're going to take you shooting. We're going to sort out the guns.
Let's do it.